handful of pro-life Democrats, this would be the law today, and there would be no getting rid of it. So to John and the members of your movement, thank you, John, for all your work. You have not one, but two presidents of the Harvard Republican Club in the room. I was, in fact, the Gerald Ford of the Harvard Republican Club. I became president of the Harvard Republican Club when the real president of the Harvard Republican Club resigned, because he had to leave school early to go off to Oxford and then back to Harvard Law. But we became friends at Harvard, and we remained friends, and we remained fellow workers in the Reagan Revolution. And if you don't know Jim Strzok, put up your hand, Jim, I'm going to embarrass you. There is one of together at the Office of Personnel Management together, and Jim stuck around for Bush. He became the head of enforcement at EPA, and he went out to California with Pete Wilson, became the head of the California EPA. When we had the EPA, they did what it was supposed to do, protect the environment, not destroy business. Unfortunately, Jim then moved over to Phoenix and he ran away from California, and the EPA left behind has gone steadily left under any kind of government over there, and now bedevils all of us. But he's now an author, consultant here, and if you ever need someone to talk about leadership, Jim Strzok is your name. What's the new book coming out?
March 16th.
Yeah. And Jim will be on the radio with me talking about his new book on leadership. So don't miss it. It's written about Reagan, it's written about Teddy Roosevelt. And we were there, fellow travelers. I would say one more story, then I'll talk about politics. Before we teamed up at OPM, I was a young lawyer in the White House Counsel's office. And anyone who's a lawyer here will know if you're the last guy in the door, you get all the just the worst mess, right? You get the dogs and cats, and you prevent the presidential seal. And I had very little to do because even on the big stuff. I was sharing an office this week with a pretty smart lawyer. His name is Roberts, and today he's the Chief Justice of the United States, so he did all the hard stuff. So I had all this easy stuff around to do, and so I had a lot of time on my hands. And one day, Mother Teresa came to the White House. And you've heard me speak at a Young Life banquet, which I do a lot. You've heard me tell the story, but I'll tell it a little bit about it as well. She was receiving the Medal of Freedom from President Reagan. And I thought, this is one of my heroes. I'm going to be there in the front row. You have the right, even when you work over in the executive office building, to come over to the Rose Garden during the ceremony. And I got over there licking the place to see Mother Teresa. And we had, this is awesome, and she was wonderful, but she was really little. She was really little. And the giver was a big guy, just full of life and charisma, and he walked out and gave this wonderful speech about her, and concluded by placing the medal over her very small shoulders. He said, do you want to say something, Mother Teresa? She said, yes. He moved the microphone way down. She looked up to the President of the United States and she said, Mr. President, I need more money. Ever since then, I've never hesitated to ask people for money. Ask the President of the United States for money. They need more money. And it is a cause every bit as important as anyone that gives support it, because who said it aside to Tom? They said we might go over the cliff. I said we're over the cliff. And yeah, we can get back up on top. That's a businessman talking for you. I'm just a lawyer. But on Saturday, I'm going to Baltimore because I have a chance to address the Republican congressmen in their retreat, annual retreat. Dennis Prager and I'll give him 1 out of 20 words. But I'll use my 5%. Dennis Prager, good friend. I will use my 5% to tell them a couple of messages that I think are animating this campaign or animating you, which is there has never been this much energy. There has never been this much enthusiasm. There has never been this much willingness to sacrifice and to work and to knock on doors. I mean, this is an August primary, a November election, and it's January. Look at this one. A lot of that is Tom, a lot of that is Dave, a lot of that is friends and networks and old races, but it's still way early in the cycle to have this kind of energy and this kind of a room. That tells me that it wasn't a looping message. Now, Jim and I campaigned in Massachusetts together. I ran Jerry Ford's youth campaign in Massachusetts in 1976, and that was a lonely. Knocking on doors in Fall River, you didn't slam them, they actually keep you a while. And so, I confess, I am not worthy to be talking about Scott Brown, because I set up through the first week in January. It was not possible. Not possible. To this day, I do not believe that Ted Kennedy's seat is held by a Republican.
No.
in Source County, very smart guy. And he was over last week after the election. He said, you know, if someone had said I had to bet everything I had, every dollar I'd ever made, every asset that I had left, on one seat in the Senate, I would have bet it all on Ted Kennedy's seat, staying Democrat.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's right. 6 months ago, 1 month ago, if someone had said to you, what is the safest seat in the United States, you would say Ted Kennedy's seat. When he died, they could nominate a donkey. They could nominate the Navy goat, and the goat would win. And Martha Coakley was not, I mean, she turned out to have a series of bad snafus, but she was a very polished, statewide, successful, arch-liberal, endorsed by everyone in the state. She should have won by 30 points. What is going on? I've never seen it. I was there in '94. I was in broadcast journalism in '94. And I opened my night that night on the television in KCP in Los Angeles. If it's a fight, they would have stopped it. Chris Cox walked in. He said, if anyone tells you that they saw this coming, they're lying. 1994. No one saw it coming. I was there in 1980. Steve working for Richard Nixon out at St. Clair, John University of Michigan Law School. I was sitting in a room with a couple of liberals, one guy that Jim knows, John Roman, really left-wing guy, and a couple of conservatives. And as I watched Reagan sweep the country and Senator after we took the Senate back that night, I said, wow, this might be the best night ever that I will experience in politics, 1980. I think 2010 can be better than that. It's not anything that Republicans did. It's everything Democrats did. We gave them everything, and they did everything that we said they would do. Whether it is disarming the war on terror, whether it is reading Miranda rights to a known bomber, behind whom there is a long line of known bombers after 10 to 50 minutes of non-serious interrogation by non-specialists, or whether it is the fiscal ruination of the country. We have come to the point now where Americans recognize that they have to get rid of it. They have to. There will be some Democrats who, for reasons related to their own personal wealth, power, or status, will continue to walk alongside unions, public employee unions especially. But I believe the average American has now recognized we can't afford it. President Bush, and I love President Bush, if there are any Bush haters here, don't talk to me, because I think he's a great, great American. President Bush had a budget deficit in 2007 of $161 billion, and it was a lot. It was a troubling issue. We had 2 wars. We had some economic stimulus in 2007, not enough. It was a big number. 161 billion. This year is 1.35 trillion. And with no sign going down, but only going up. And no intention. I don't know what Vince said in the State of the Union tonight. He's not saying I'm going to cut the federal budget back to where it was in 2007. If he only said that, all we have to do is reset the clock to 2007. That would be the one thing I would campaign on. If I'm a Republican. Whatever you got in 2007 federal government, that's what you're getting. There may be a couple of adjustments for defense that are necessary, but probably not, because the rocket doesn't cost as much in 2010 as it did in 2007. That's my thought. Because as Dave said, it will destroy the currency of the United States. It will ruin the financial health of this country if we do this for 3 years. We've got to change it to 20 years. And I'm confident that we will. Reality of fiscal ruin, to run on the reality of the war that it continues on to this day, but to do so with 2 attitudes in mind. One, optimism. It's what won it for Reagan in 1980. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember that, but Gipper was never not confident of the greatness and goodness of America, and he was confident that he could turn it around. We've got evidence of the same thing. And I think that every single candidate, Dave displays this well in every single race. Has to say, boy, they've created a mountain of debt, and we're going to take it down a shovel at a time. Boy, they have weakened our defenses, we're going to put them back up a brick at a time. Boy, they have made it difficult for business to succeed, but we will make it succeed. And then number 2, they have to go with the underlying regulatory structure of the United States, and they have to have confidence that people are smart. For a long time, Congressmen have thought that people aren't smart, and they won't talk to you about difficult issues. They won't talk to you about tort reform. They'll tell you this offline. Tort reform bores people. Nobody understands it. It's a businessman's issue. It's a broadcaster issue. That's not true. I think Americans understand it. You can about nuclear power. No, nuclear power is going to scare people. Chernobyl, they're going to think 3 Mile Island. No, that's not true. People will understand it. You can talk to them about infrastructure inputs. People are smart. And in this new era of instant communications, where you've got things like Ex-Urban League, bloggers of which are here tonight, Espresso Pundits, bloggers of which are here tonight. When you've got great blogs and talk radio, you can make arguments and you can persuade people. Now, the lawyers in the room believe this because they persuade juries all the time to people who are not specialists. But I'm hoping to persuade them to get out there and make arguments about why our policies are better than theirs. I'm going to carry back, I hope, a message on Monday that you listen to the radio, that they were all nodding. But even if they don't know, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you nod and that you demand of your candidates competence, charisma, optimism, and willingness to do as David did, work as hard as Scott Brown did in Massachusetts. Guys and women, thanks for being here tonight. And David, will we take a couple of blessings? Why don't we do that? Thank you for being here.
Very simple question.
John, what are we going to do about getting down?
Yesterday, the National Association of Manufacturers released a report by the Milken Institute. Milken Institute is named for Michael Milken, of course. It's a fantastically center-right, very competent group that goes through a genuine job policy to talk about